Up the Krypton Factor, it's Wayne Garvie!
Hello, hello, hello everyone. We've got such a packed show, I've got to immediately introduce you to our panellists today. You know him as a man who gave you Joanna Lumley down the Nile. But today, he will be revealing stories of chaos and agony. Ladies and gentlemen, Clive Toller! Next, the woman behind the comedy juggernaut that is Shooting Stars. Titty Titty Bang Bang, and of course, don't forget your toothbrush. But today, she talks about a show that promised stars, but only delivered Davro. It's Lisa Clark. Next up, the man who introduced us to Pineapple Dance Studios and Louis Spence, and he thinks that's a success. How bad can it be with Jonathan Stadlen? And finally, he gave us A League of Their Own, Mr. and Mrs., but his story tonight will have you crying for his children. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Murray Boland. Now, I want to start by giving you a picture. It's September 1995, a young man with hopes, dreams, ambitions, a desire to succeed in television. It's the day after his first ITV network show that he's produced. He's come early to the legendary Granada Entertainment offices at his desk, ready to receive the feedback. At 8:30, the phone rings. A lady, her accent, probably South Yorkshire, Rotherham, perhaps Doncaster, I'm not sure. She's elderly. Her voice quaking, fragile, but not because of the infirmities of age, no, but because she is angry. You, she says, have ruined my favorite show, and my husband wants to speak to you as well. That morning, I received quite a lot of phone calls on a similar way because it was the morning after the 18th series debut of The Krypton Factor. I stand before you today as the man who took one of television's most successful shows and wiped it off the map. Thank you. Because some people would say that's a badge of shame. I say that's a badge of honor. Because 3 years later, I arrived at the BBC, and the controller of BBC One told me I had one series to fix a question sport, which had also run for 18 years, or it was off the air. And luckily, because of the enormous cock-up that was the Krypton Factor, and by the way, we're unable to show you clips of that shows because so horrific is it that ITV wouldn't let us have them. Because of that, I learned how to throw the bathwater out and not the baby. And that's what this session is about today. You probably all thought you were coming to laugh at some of your friends and colleagues for their enormous cock-ups, but it's really about what we've learned when things go wrong and how often, actually, it's failure that gives us the insight to success. Now, before we start, I just want you all to stand up. Come on, come on, get on with it. You're going to do it. Very good. You can see who we've got here, some familiar faces. Now, I want you to sit down if you're not actually involved in television production or commissioning. Are you a journalist or you work for the BBC, probably? Okay. Now, that's a big number. Now, I want you to sit down if you've never worked on a bad show. You see, we're all in it together. Okay, we're going to kick off. Our panelists have very kindly today decided to come and talk about some of their shows that they think really do stand tall in the canon of disasters. And first up, Clive, what are you going to bring to the party?
Well, I think I've won this session outright because the show I made was truly, I think, the worst TV show ever. Luckily, it's not repeated. It's never really seen. It was Beat the Crusher with Freddie Starr. And I think that's it. I think you don't need to say any more.
Shall we watch a clip?
No. I'll let me do the pitch. What I did was I took. There's a scene. I don't know if any of you've seen. Well, I'm sure lots of you have seen Goldfinger. And there's a scene where one of the millionaires doesn't want in, and they shoot him in the head, and then they take him and they put him in the back of the car, and they crush his car. Odd Job does it. It's all brilliant. Anyway, I recut that. I said, look how sexy it is, and I cut it to Simply the Best or something really shit like that. And we went in to see James Baker and Elizabeth Murdoch, and to their credit, they both still speak to me, and I said, this is going to be great. Mark Lindsay and I had thought it up over quite a few beers, and we thought, what is it that people value the most that they will risk? Their children? No, we can't do that. And their house? No, they can't do that. Will they actually bet their car to win a car? And I said, so we then cut this promo together, and I said, what is really good about this show is that it won't be made in a TV studio. It will be made in a shopping centre. It'll be Sky Comes to Town. And it will be really good. And I don't know, it seemed really good. It'll be a road show, and we had a whole list of presenters, which started with Jonathan Ross, who was in one of his fallow periods again, and then it ended with Freddie Starr, who was on the bottom. Anyway, we got Freddie, and then getting into shopping malls was more difficult than I thought. So the shopping malls we got into were the really, really shit ones, where... I can't really comment on the type of people who were in it because I'll say
I was watching the Jeremy Kyle show this
Yes,
morning.
there you go. So, yes, a lot of people who were on Jeremy Kyle were in the shopping centre, and the main shops were the kind of Clinton remainder card shops and stuff like that. And also, there was no way of keeping the audience, so we'd start it on a big finale, and I was on the floor, Mark was in the trucks, and I would be going, crusher, crusher, crusher. And then after about 20 minutes, people the Clinton remainder card store was doing a sale, and everyone drifted away. So as you watch the show, literally all you'll hear is me going, crusher, crusher, crusher.
No, look. I know this is fast becoming a rather sad therapy, and even worse, a kind of pitch in some ways. But I think we've got to see this. Let's see this show.
Okay.
I'm looking for Peter and Carol Evans. Your wife tells me that that you are into gardening.
Yeah, enjoy the garden, yeah.
Have you got a gazebo or a garden shed or something like that?
Yeah, I got a nice shed, yeah.
And if you look at the screen, you will see your garden shed. Would you like to see your shed go into the crusher?
No, definitely not.
Okay, a forfeit, you've got to sing one of your favourite songs.
You painted up your lips and rolled and curled your tinted hair. Ruby, are you contemplating going out somewhere?
Yeah, Russia, 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 Russia. No, we couldn't do that because he did sing a nice song, but unfortunately, crushed the thing.
Genius.
There's nothing positive about that, is there?
We didn't do a pilot. That was one of the first things, probably the mistake. We went straight to a series, 10 episodes, and Freddie is. Well, I don't think anyone will be working with Freddie again. He's quite a tough sell at the moment.
The police
and week one would happen. Melinda Messenger was the co-host. She had a little segment called Babies Win Prizes. That was the classy bit of the show. And Freddie came, and we did the show, we did the rehearsals, week one. Week two, he came and he went, what happens this week? I said, well, it's a format. We do the same as we do. What, you do the same every week? We crush a car every week? I said, yeah. And it's, well, that sounds not very good, does it? And
he should have worked in commission.
But basically, they won. They competed to win a new Hyundai, Korea's top car at the time, and Mark and I were on location in Caerphilly or some glamorous place, and by the time we were making episode 5 or 6, we were already on air, and we were lying, I was in bed in one of those hotel rooms where literally I could just tap and talk to Mark through the wall. And Paxman was just winding up Newsnight, and he went, no, I've just got the papers, disaster, famine, independent, and the Daily Star, the comedian Freddie Starr appears to have eaten someone's car. And that was the front page of the Daily Star. We thought, oh, it's a big hit. And then we looked at the page. The woman whose car we'd crushed, it had been a present from her dead sister who had recently died of cancer. It couldn't get any worse. And
so
they
you did a lot of research.
We did a lot of research.
So
that was
all in all,
thing
right, I'm going to stop you now because, quite frankly, you're obviously scarred by this. Is there anything you learned from this debacle?
I think we were ahead of our time. I think it was a green show. I saw Stuart Murphy on the way in. He said it was one of his favourite shows. And I think we're looking, well, obviously, I don't own the format anymore because I've left Tiger Aspect and Endemol.
But Tim Hinks will be pitching that.
Tim Hinks will be pitching it, as we speak.
OK, so moving on, Lisa, what show have you decided to bring to this?
Well, after that, I think mine deserves a BAFTA, frankly. Mine was a very, very simple concept. You get A-list stars doing impressions, but we wanted to give a little twist. And the twist was these are stars you wouldn't expect to be seen doing impressions. The flaw being that they actually couldn't do impressions. So, whereas we started with an A-list cast, literally they dropped like flies. So we had Jerry Hall doing Katie Price. It was a bit of television. And then, so we ended up with people we knew could do impressions, but having a whole show full of those sorts of people, it just sort of was so saccharine. And the sketches, to be fair to the show, some of the sketches were really well written. Some of them were really well acted / impressioned. But put them all together, and it was... I tried to watch it back for this session, and I had to stop the tape about 4 times.
Well, I'm afraid you're going to have to watch one of these sketches now. Can we have a look at the All-Star Impressions show?
Hello, and welcome to Who Wants to Bath with a Millionaire? Hoping to get clean tonight is singer-songwriter Gary Barlow.
Hiya, Chris.
Okay, this is the first question. This is a chance to use my loofah. When I wash my face, Gary, do I use A, soap, B, shower gel, C, cleanser, or D, face and body scrub?
I'm pretty sure you'd use the cleanser, Chris.
Over the cleanser. Why do you say that, Gary?
I don't know, it just rang a bell as soon as I saw it. Chris, I've made my mind up. At least I got wet. I've had a great bath, enjoyed every minute of it, and I've decided I'm gonna get out.
It's good. No, but I've just said, but they do impressions. Yes, they do, but that's because we got to close to the end of the barrel, where we'd started with Ronnie Ancona, and I actually, to my credit, told Ronnie not to do it, because I knew the way the show was going. So whereas we started with John Thompson and Ronnie Ancona, they could do it, and then we had Tim Healy and
what
Paul...
What did you say? Save yourself, I'm going down with the show.
we had Tim Healy and Paul Daniels doing an older Anton Deck, doing I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here. And lots of other gems. But together, as I say, together, if you put that show on Saturday Night Takeaway now, you put that sketch on there, you think, oh, it's quite kitsch, that's funny. But put a whole hour of it. And the ending featured 6 different celebrities being Tom Jones, including David Guest. None of them could sing. At the end, we ran out of time in the studio, the end was just horrendous. And we somehow had to piece it together in post.
I can see now.
It's upsetting me.
It is upsetting you, actually.
That is
I can see that.
It was a laugh.
I think we might need some help later from some trained medical staff for the way this is going. Jonathan, what have you brought to us?
Well, this is a show that I didn't actually make. I developed, and I think that makes me more responsible rather than less responsible. And the beginning of this programme was inauspicious. My MD at the time said, there's this person I'd really like you to meet. And I walked into the office and there was sitting this woman who looked not dissimilar at all to Jennifer Lopez. And I found her really attractive. And then he said, do you mind just coming out of the room? I came out of the room, he said, that woman has a penis. And I said, what do you mean? She goes, well, she's a transsexual. And I said, okay, that's really interesting. And I would consider myself really straight. Like, I've kissed one man with no tongues on a rugby tour once as a joke. We don't need to go there, but that's as far as it's gone. And I really did find her attractive. And I didn't actually stop finding her attractive after I realised that she had a penis. So that, I thought...
It's interesting.
I was like, this is interesting. We could do a really interesting show about this and sort of look at sexuality in a really interesting way. And what it ended up as is a show called There's Something About Miriam, which we can...
Let's have a look at There's Something About Miriam.
Tonight, the dramatic finale of the most explosive dating experience of a lifetime.
I think it's about time for them to know. You see, Tom? I'm not a woman. I was born as a man.
I told you all along. I told you guys. Where'd I got that,
That was just before we got the 6 lawsuits for sexual, which is completely true, for sexual harassment. And the idea was that 6 men would go out to this island to try and win the hand of this woman, but they didn't know that she was a man. And that isn't actually how it was developed. And how it was developed was something I think could have been quite interesting. And it got made into a sort of ha-ha, look at them, he's dry humping a woman who's got a penis and he doesn't realise. And that wasn't what it, I don't think, we could have done it in a slightly different way, yeah. So I feel...
Yeah, I think that's a charitable interpretation. Yeah. Murray.
So yeah, my show was ages ago, and it was called Club X, and I produced it with Charlie Parsons, and it was meant to be one of Channel 4's big kind of innovative new shows, and they cancelled a really successful, fantastic show just before it to make way for it and pay for it, called Network 7. So there was huge pressure on it to be really brilliant, and it went out for 2 hours live. It was an arts show on Wednesday nights on Channel 4 for 16 weeks. And I couldn't really tell you what the idea was. It was about the arts. And it was shit. And I know it was rubbish because every time they do a top 100 worst programs ever made, it's always in the top 10. And the problem with it was I didn't just produce it, I presented it as well. So. And it was just a litany of disasters from start to finish, 32 hours of utter shite.
I mean, that's one thing you can take comfort from. At least you weren't in There's Something About Miriam.
I know, but what's interesting is when we were asked to go on this panel, I didn't know which one to choose. There was like a... And my cousin said, if you want to be Prime Minister, not I want to be Prime Minister, if you want to be Prime Minister, you have to have a 10-year window of sort of like goodness, good behaviour. And I look back over the last 10 years, and it's a wasteland of sort of TV disasters. It's really, it's bad.
Okay. You're a good lad, you're a good lad. Your mother loves you, Murray, we did try to get a clip of the aforementioned Club X, and we could only find a clip by going on YouTube onto a show called TV Hell.
All right.
So apologies for the quality of the clip we're about to see.
Get ready for the unexpected as we lash together 90 power-packed minutes of music, art, drama, fashion, and culture. When you're first,
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, Anthropometry 1989. Big hand, if you would, please. Club X is a disaster, says The Independent. Club X is like the South Bank show in Stringfellows, according to the Birmingham Express, some local paper. And the best one, I think, has to be Robert Elms, who described us as being remarkably inept. Well, thank you very much for all the publicity.
Okay.
Well, thanks.
So, What, though, in your career has that experience taught you that, you know, anything at all?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know how much it taught me necessarily. I mean, it was, the thing was, it was way beyond our technical expertise, I think. The idea was you went from club to club every week, a different club, and most of the clubs weren't set up for hosting what was a really complicated live broadcast, and they didn't even have the proper kind of electricity to power it. So, I don't know if you noticed, there were some clips there from the first show. It went out without sound. And on the second show, on the second show, there was people realized it was a total car crash. So hundreds and hundreds of people turned up just to see it go wrong. And there was a run on the green room bar, and it shorted the electrics in the club, so the whole program fell off air. And then by about program 3 or 4, we made the sort of schoolboy error of not hiring enough floor managers. And so there was one floor manager, and she couldn't queue everything in time, so I started having to queue all the items that were taking place. And we eventually got left behind. And so there were people going to air without realizing they were on television. And about halfway through, when all the guests were getting drunk, nobody was making sense, nobody could hear what was happening. At one point, I appeared talking to a man who was doing ice sculpture, and I was heartily sick of the whole fucking thing at that point. And so I was saying to him, look, I don't know what I'm doing here. This is ridiculous. I mean, Charlie Parsons is a madman. And I'm just pouring out my worries to this man without realizing I was on television. And he was just making an ice sculpture. And then the best bit of all was at the end of this 2-hour farrago, everybody was pissed. I was just counting down the seconds till the thing went off air. And I had to propose a toast to futurism, which is this, it doesn't matter what it was. And so I was doing this toast to futurism, and as the floor manager was counting me down, this other guy, who was totally pissed, got up and took an air pistol out of his jacket, and he shot my co-host in the face with it. And all you saw me doing at the end of the show was going, for fuck's sake, I have fucking had it with this. That was it.
Well,
so it was a disaster. I'll tell you, actually, I'll tell you what I learned out of it. I felt crucified because I was the face of this whole rubbish. But Charlie Parsons, in the middle of all of this, absolutely loved it. There was not a moment when he regretted what he was doing. He completely believed in it. And if I was to take anything away from that, it was, if you're going to do a show, really believe in it. And it really, it's interesting because The Word was actually the second series of Club X that was recommissioned. And a lot of what he learned in terms of, just having lots of guts came from that.
That's the first bit of takeout that we've had in this session.
That is we finally got a bit of takeout.
Yeah, well
that's what I was trying to.
Thanks.
Well, hopefully we'll be getting some more takeout because not only have our panelists given their souls, but we asked other people in the industry to talk about some of their failures, and we've got some VTs. And the first up is Nick Mather, and I don't know if you've ever heard of this show. Nick's talking about a show called Don't Scare the Hair.
Hello Edinburgh, my name is Nick Mather, and I am Managing Director of Remarkable. The worst TV show I've ever made, and ever hoped to make, was Don't Scare the Hair for BBC One.
Hi, I'm Jason, and I live in an underground forest with a hare. Now and again, I invite some visitors to pop down to our little world and do some really odd jobs.
They are about to go off. Oh no, the hare is scared. He's got out of bed and he's heading off.
So things that went wrong with Don't Scare the Hare, I honestly think that we ran away with ourselves and got very, very carried away with what we were doing, and we became delighted by the notion of this fucking hare. We'd all sat in the room going, oh, isn't he cute? Isn't he lovely? People really love this guy with his little floppy ears and his little, whiskers. Remember when he first came into the studio and we were like, God, this guy's really cute. Everyone's going to absolutely bloody love him. People absolutely hated the hare. It was fucking extraordinary. Just absolutely made people angry. It really, people got angry at him. When it started doing badly, it was quite upsetting. It was quite hard to kind of get up in the morning and keep going to work, sort of thinking, God, do you know what, I've worked really, really, really hard on this show, and it's just an absolute disaster. And not only a disaster, it's sort of like laughable. So it's not very pleasant when a show you've put a lot of work into starts to fail quite dismally, particularly in a very, very public place like Saturday Night, BBC One, and you're starting to think to yourself, how is it my life would be better if I didn't have a commission on Saturday Night, BBC One? And that feels like quite a strange feeling, because you think, God, that's what my whole career is sort of like directed towards getting big commissions like that. And then when it starts going down the toilet, you think, God, I really, really, really wish I didn't have a show on Saturday night on BBC One. What I would do not to have a show on Saturday night on BBC One right about now. And it'd be even better if that show wasn't Don't Scare the Hare.
I mean, Clive, we've all been in that sort of development thing with something, and then you're in production, and kind of everyone thinks it's great, and really, it's not working out, is it?
What was great about Scare the Hare as well was that it was in all the promos, and then obviously when they tried to kind of wipe the history of it, the ears and things were still in some of the promos, like weeks later, like just torturing. I think Carl, are you here, Carl? He's gone. Carl commissioned it. Good luck with that, Indy.
I don't know what you're talking about.
It's a joke.
Strange comment.
Yeah, no, you do get carried away with it. I mean, it's very easy to get carried away with ideas. What you hope is that somewhere along the line there's a check and balance. So, you know, that somebody will say, really, you're going to crush a car with Freddie Starr? I mean, I remember when...
Yeah, let's not go back to Freddie Starr.
No, but you just don't, you just hope that somewhere along the line someone's going to go, really? I mean, like when... There was in one of the episodes of I'm using this as a cathartic, that somebody had to bet their surfboards, and then we basically, if they lost, which they always lost, there was basically no one ever won on Beat the Crusher, and that we would then cut up the surfboards with a chainsaw. And I remember we gave Freddie a chainsaw, and he went, no one's ever given me a chainsaw before, and he kind of staggered towards with the cameraman, and everyone kind of pulled away in kind of fear. I think those are the things we should have learned somewhere.
Yeah, that one might have been a clue at that moment. Yeah.
I think he really, really likes Beat the Crusher.
I think he does. I think he does.
What's interesting about that, when he said, I wish I hadn't had that commission, and if something goes wrong, you feel so absolutely shit about yourself, and lose all your confidence and think, I'm never going to work again, and why would anyone commission me? And then in that time, I start thinking about alternative careers, and I genuinely go down the road of I'm going to sell second-hand cars. And I start to think about the cars, I think about what I'd do the write-up for the eBay, and then inside, I start to feel better, and I think, actually, I've got an escape route, it's okay. And it's two sides of a coin, it's really difficult.
Yeah, but to be fair, you'd be selling a Mercedes with a bloody, Skoda engine, wouldn't you, after that show? Well, that obviously didn't work as a joke. Right, next clip, get me out of here, quick. I mean, we're now going to show a clip from a show that actually, as a result, the ITV share price went down, apparently. The FTSE 100, they actually said, because of the quality of this particular show. This is Jim Allen talking about celebrity wrestling.
Hello, I'm Jim Allen, I'm from RDF, and the worst programme that I ever made by some distance was Celebrity Wrestling for ITV.
You know him as James Hewitt, but in this ring, he is Gentleman Jim!
And just the last few seconds of this round, and they're both down now. These two men in their 40s, both gasping for oxygen, not much left to give as the round comes to an end.
The truth of Celebrity Wrestling was it was rejected as an idea, as a concept. No one came to it from the start. It started with a rating of 2.4 million. Doctor Who got 8 million. On the second week, we went down to 2.1 million. Doctor Who brought back the Daleks. They got 10 million. And I got a call from ITV saying, we're going to move Celebrity Wrestling slightly later in the schedule. I said, oh, okay, what time Saturday night? They went, no, Sunday morning, 10 o'clock. And do you know the sad truth of it is, even at 10 o'clock when I hoped that we might have a revival, we were beaten by Farming Today. Often shows that do really badly are just rejected on billings, on concept, on ideas. I know I'll be probably jeered about it, but I actually think, and I know I'm quite nervous of saying this, I thought Celebrity Wrestling was well executed and well made. As much energy went into trying to get that program right as, let's say, I'm a Celebrity, get me out of here. And for everyone who's ever made a flop, they'll probably say they've done some of their best work in trying to get it right. So I think the industry should be better at judging when something has been rejected as an idea and when something has been rejected because of its execution. There are two different things. Most programs that flop, people don't come to in the first place. It doesn't necessarily mean it's made badly. People might say to you, though, Celebrity Wrestling, shit idea, shit execution.
To be honest, really, I generally think people are very forgiving of making bad. I mean, and they are sophisticated enough to be able to tell the difference between a bad idea and something that's badly made. So, you know, in my experience, when you've made a show that didn't work as well, if people feel that you've really tried and you've really worked hard on it, they're reasonably okay with that. I mean, nobody wants a failure, but...
Yeah, but that's the point. If you don't try, you'll never know. And in television, there's no rule book. Nobody knows. You can't say, that's definitely going to be a hit and that isn't. All you've got to do is go out there and try and really, like Jim was saying, work hard, do it the best you can do. Some will work, some won't.
But isn't it quite important, though, to define what a failure is? And I think there are four things to what... Maybe this is completely a failure in itself, but I think there are four things. One is it a good idea or a bad idea? The second thing is, what is the process like of making it, like with the commissioner, with your production team? Is that an enjoyable thing? Do you get up in the morning and think, I want to go into work or not? I think thirdly, is the end result what you all signed up to? Like, if you did beat the Crusher, did it end up like goats in Afghanistan or something completely different? And lastly, what's the audience reaction to it? And the audience reaction, as Kevin Spacey was saying last night, isn't just audience figures, is there a core audience or group that really like it and become fans of it? And by that measure, I think a lot of the things we're talking about aren't necessarily failures, because it did have one or two of those things. It maybe didn't have all. Yours had none.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Well, I mean, you made Celebrity Boxing, which was in a similar territory, but a big success.
Yeah. I think, I didn't watch Celebrity Wrestling, but I think it probably came after boxing, didn't it? And I think that's, if you try and do something, I mean, the Celebrity Boxing match was a big hit on BBC Two, and really, really well cast, which goes back to the All-Star Impression show that wasn't well cast. We had Ricky Gervais versus Grant Bovey, and they really, really trained, and they really put everything into it, and it was a sodding exciting programme to make and be a part of. Didn't really know whether, I mean, having Ricky Gervais did certainly put it up on the scale of whether it was going to work or not. But as I say, it was real, and they meant it. They were punching each other's lights out.
But coming back to that point earlier about learning and how do you cope with failure, we've got a clip now from Marcus Child, who's a motivational speaker. He's been doing some work with ITV's senior management, who just talks about how you cope with failure.
Hello, beautiful TV people. I'm about to explain the psychological journey we all go through when disaster happens. Okay, for months you've worked on a show. You pitched, you nurtured, you loved. But the ultimate nightmare, it hasn't worked. Catastrophe. Welcome to stage one, shock. The blood drains from your face. Your life is over. Very quickly, stage two, denial. The rating's wrong. I'm reading it wrong. It's another channel. Does it include the +1? They've sent the wrong figures. But there's no escaping. That barb number taunting you is right. So what do? It's a natural human response. Blame others. It was the slot. I blame David Berg and the losers in marketing. It was a shite trail. But eventually, creeping doubt sets in, which means you start to blame yourself. I've been found out. I'm a terrible TV producer. What was I thinking? And this is where danger lurks, because at the next stage you'll become immobilized. Here, your confidence is at its most shaken. If you let it, this period of self-doubt could be your downfall. But take heart, this journey could also be the making of you. The trick is, don't stay here for long. Feel the pain and get out of the wallowing mire. Shoulders back, head high, and into acceptance. So, you cock this one up. No one died, it's not the end of the world. I haven't failed, I've learned stuff. It's time to start moving on. New horizons beckon, ideas start fizzing, and you're bristling to pitch again. So this is my wisdom for you, lovely TV people. This journey can either weaken you or strengthen you. Stand tall and proudly say, I have made the worst TV ever, and I learned from it. Yeah.
I am not getting us to do that. But yes, of course you can, Lisa.
Load of bollocks.
Go to the pub. He's turned ITV around, that bloke.
Yeah,
I thought that was reasonably accurate, actually.
Well, you can do that. You can go to the pub, have a pint, and move on.
What, all in one
You don't have
drink?
to go through all. Imagine going at home and charting. I'm in the acceptance stage, I'm in the moving on stage.
I don't think you'll necessarily...
Jim Allen was in the denial stage. He still managed to put in the fact that we're up against Doctor Who and the Daleks. He just actually, he told the anecdote, but actually managed to tell us it was 8.2, 10 million, and, you know...
Yeah, it wasn't his fault.
I actually miss all those stages of, like, denial, blame. I go straight to self-doubt and immobilisation.
Swim around there.
And then I have to think, like he said, no one has died. And I start to think, I'll go out, wake up in the morning, people are going to work, I think the world's sort of moving on. But still, I think this has been an utter disaster and I'll never work again.
I think the thing that was most extraordinary, again, looking back at Club X, was with Charlie Parsons, is he would never acknowledge a mistake.
Yeah.
Absolutely wouldn't countenance something being bad, or that there was something wrong with it. I thought it was incredible, but if you think about it, an amazing coping mechanism. There was no danger he was ever going to have self-doubt about anything. He absolutely just wouldn't acknowledge it.
And that has a big impact on
And I think, it's a really important thing, that, because those programs can kill you. You absolutely can lose all your kind of creative confidence out of things like that.
Well, let's look at our next title is Jim Sayer from Maverick, and he's talking about a show called Property Chain.
Hi Edinburgh, I'm Jim Sayer from Maverick Television, and the worst television I've ever made was The Property Chain for Channel 4. The idea of The Property Chain was to follow simultaneously every single link in a property chain, from the moment that people found houses right the way through to the moment that they hopefully moved in. It was a really clever idea, and nobody had ever filmed a full property chain from start to finish. And it turns out there was a very good reason for that, because it's pretty much impossible.
After 16 weeks of uncertainty, the chain has ended in despair.
There's this problem about vermin in the roof space, which could be mice or bats.
I'm still keen on the house, but I'm not going to be bullied.
I think no one can be successful all the time. And I think that's really important. And I think you have to be comfortable with the fact that if you want to do amazing work, sometimes you have to accept that it'll go amazingly badly wrong. The people I most admire in television are the people who are comfortable with taking risk and knowing that part of building a body of good work or great work is that there'll be some absolute turkeys in there too. In order to really succeed and to really do something extraordinary, you need to go beyond what your mind thinks is possible and what your mind thinks is capable, and that's risk-taking. And provided that it's creative risk rather than personal risk or health and safety risk, I think that's a pretty good thing. I once sent a blind director to make a film about a blind contributor. And in hindsight, if you'll pardon the pun, that was quite a lot of risk.
You know, what I think is interesting about that in the risk thing is really all of us, not just here, everyone, their next show should definitely be able to be their worst show or their best show. And if it isn't possible to be one of those things, it's going to be something quite mediocre. And as an indie, you have a problem, which is you go to a broadcaster and they're shitting themselves about ratings or whatever it is, and they think if we get below 3 million, we get 2.8, then that's just about acceptable. But I think you can only succeed as much as you're willing to fail. I think as Lisa said in her article. So if that's 3 million and that's 2.8, that means you can probably succeed that much above it. So you're pitching into this window of sameness, derivativeness, mediocrity, and it's really, really boring. And to try and do something outside that is bloody difficult. And so you have to accept that if you try and do something like that, it's going to be either really bad or really good. But I'd much rather be in that situation than making Bargain Hunt Series 75, or if someone's making that show, it's a good show. But what I mean, it's that sort of sameness, I think that's not what we got into TV for.
Yeah. Does everyone agree?
Well, yeah, because you make them up, don't you? If you do something if you take risks like that, you've got that percentage chance of doing something that will go down that'll be remembered as a fantastic programme as well as doing the ones that are remembered as not so good programmes. But you've got to take the risk. You have to, otherwise, yeah, like you, I don't want to make shows that are bland and sanguine. I want to push the envelope, try something new. It's interesting because my husband wrote this theme music for Strictly Come Dancing, and when I asked him what he was doing, he said, I'm doing this new show for the BBC. They're bringing back Come Dancing. I said, oh, for God's sake, that's never going to work. Really? Oops. Luckily, it did.
Yeah, that Simon Cowell thing where he pitched Britain's Got Talent, was it?
Yes.
I saw that on the story of the talent show, and ITV said we'll commission a pilot. Interesting about the Kevin Spacey thing. They commissioned a pilot and then didn't do it, and then they took it back once they'd taken it to America and brought it back here. And if, as a commissioner, you can't spot that Britain's Got Talent is going to do well, then that just gives an example of how much you have to push to try and get something slightly different away. If he can't do it, then you know.
That's because nobody knows. Because you can't. There's no rules. Nobody knows really what's going to be a hit.
Well, perhaps our next clip, in development, they should have realised. Because this is Tim Harcourt talking about Murder Most Famous.
Hi Edinburgh, my name is Tim Harcourt from Studio Lambert's. The worst TV I've ever made or been involved with is Murder Most Famous for BBC Two.
6 stars face a challenge that will push them to the limits of their abilities. Physically, mentally,
completely lost,
and emotionally. None of them has ever written a work of fiction, but now they have the chance to win a publishing contract to write their very own murder mystery novel.
I'm loving it. I'm loving this.
Each show built to an unintentionally hilarious moment where each of the celebrities would read a passage from the piece of crime fiction that they were writing.
With one final stab to his back, Ross slumped to the floor in a pool of his own blood.
I think there was a rule in TV for a while that if a celebrity really passionately wanted to do a skill or learn a skill, that would instantly translate into TV. In this instance, all the celebrities genuinely did want to write a piece of crime fiction, or everyone thinks they've got a novel in them and celebrities are no different. But that did not translate into good TV for a number of reasons. One, I just don't think that writing and TV are a great combination. And two, they were truly appalling writers on the whole. Sherry Hewson, who won, did have a book published. I never saw it in the shops. I realised very quickly in development that it was going to be terrible because I don't think I've ever spent more time developing one show than I spent developing this. The BBC wanted us literally to step through a running order of every single minute, and it required so many moments and so much formatting. You just knew it was an absolute dead duck in the water.
That dead duck moment. You've been there, Clive?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, but I think what Lisa was saying is that it's just that, even in development, you don't know when something's a good idea or a bad idea necessarily until it starts to come to it. I remember one of the development teams at Tiger many years ago, somebody came up with My New Best Friend, and I was thinking, I really thought I was fairly sure that was not going to work. And Mark Wootton made it unmissable. You know, he just, because it was like, it didn't seem to make any sense, but it was, it was the opposite of Beat the Crusher, which we thought was going to be a huge hit. That it was just, you just don't know. And sometimes what's frustrating about making television or developing or in commissioning is that you don't know. Quite often things happen by accident. Like we've all been in meetings and people say, "Oh, what's the next Top Gear?" And you feel like Top Gear happened. It's sort of grown generically into the show that it is today, and that's why it's a hit. And you can't then suddenly recreate that recipe and make something else again.
Yes, it was interesting what he was talking about there about trends. There's a feeling that if you put celebrities feeling passionate about something, and I think we've all had that moment when commissioners, or we all think, let's follow down that trend. You get kind of lost in a way, don't you, with the zeitgeist?
I've done with development for 10 years, and most of the worst mistakes I made were doing development, which I think taught me quite a lot. But we've all been in that situation. You're in a room, you're brainstorming, no one's coming up with any good ideas, it's all really shit, and at the end someone says, oh, why don't we do X, Y, Z, and suddenly it's like, okay, well, we all are getting out of this meeting, that's quite good, and you've got a meeting tomorrow with the commissioner, so you go to the commissioner, and then suddenly it's commissioned, and then you're in really deep shit, because you sort of know it's bad. And I used to sit there, thinking, it's fine, I don't have to make this, I have to hand it over to someone else. And I used to laugh when I hand some of these things over, thinking, some fucker's got to go and make this. And that is really bad. That is like, and you know, that Miriam thing came out of that, of not being across that process from development to production. And one of the ones we came up, I've had some absolutely disastrous development things. One was someone asked me to pitch to Trevor McDonald a show called Trevor McDonald's Slave Ship, where he went to Africa and picked up lots of slaves and said, that was, I mean, imagine if that had got made. It was just, it was just really bad. And then someone said, when I was a runner, the first development thing said, if you come up with an idea tomorrow that we can pitch to this channel, we'll give you a job as a researcher rather than an assistant. And one of the ideas I came up with was called double entry, which was you gave a camera to a group of boys and a camera to a group of girls, and they each had to make an erotic film for a double entry into the Cannes Porn Festival. And I thought this is interesting about what constitutes an erotic narrative, all this kind of stuff. And they sold to the Playboy channel and made porn, basically. And there is such a disconnect between what you develop to what actually happens. You can't sit there with your granny and go, oh yeah, I made this. You can just go and hide because you're done development. Notice your name's not on the credits, you just disappear. But some poor bastard's got to go and do it.
But that's where I think you come back, that you should only ever pitch stuff you really, truly believe in. It's different because you handed your stuff over. But I've heard loads of commissioners say, and when I was a commissioner, people would come in with these ideas, say, do you like that? And you go, no, not really. They go, okay, never mind. Do you like this? You go, no, not really. Do you like this? And it's like, come on, pitch one thing you really believe in, you want to make, and you passionately think is going to work, rather than just sort of sifting through one-line ideas and waiting to see if a commissioner's eyes flicker and, oh, there's something there, quickly.
Yeah. It's easier said than done. We had an agent in LA who used to say that, just pitch one idea. So we flew all the way to LA. We got 5 seconds into the pitch and he goes, I've got something similar. And our agent went, we leave. And we got up and left. And I said, really, we've flown all this way. We can't try something else? You know, I mean, like...
To be fair, if I'd gone to LA, I'm talking about going to like TV Centre. If I'd gone to LA, I probably would have had some other things in my bag. If I go to TV Centre, it's just the one.
But the bottom line is that is the only guarantee, I completely agree with you, the only guarantee you have against making something that's rubbish is you completely 100% love it and want to make it and think it's great.
I also think when I was working development, because your job was on the line, you had targets to meet, what you wanted to do above all else was get a commission. It doesn't matter what it is, just get a commission to get your numbers. And now when you're running your own thing or you're having to make it yourself, or I have to make it myself, I'm doing what Lisa's doing. I'll go in one thing that I absolutely love, that I'll go to bed thinking about, wake up thinking about, and that's the thing I want to do. And that is completely different because you're not trying to get a commission, and also you're trying to get a commissioner who you feel is going to be your partner in this because you have a shared sensibility because you have to do it together. So you're not just trying to get a commission, you're trying to find someone, can we go on this journey together? And that is a completely different thing to saying, oh, we can sell this to 5 different things to try and get it away.
Okay, we've got, our next clip actually is Andy Brereton, who works in development, but his example is talking about that moment when you're in production of something and you realise you're kind of out of your depth.
Hi, my name's Andy Brereton. I work in development at Tiger Aspect, and one of the worst shows I ever worked on was Here Comes the Sun for BBC One.
Welcome to Here Comes the Sun. 2 families are currently on the way out here, and they're both desperate to win a luxury home in the sun where they can holiday for 2 weeks a year, every year.
Couldn't afford anything like that.
It's just out of this world. You take 2 families and they would compete in a series of challenges such as Margarita Jenga, which was Jenga with margarita glasses.
5 glasses later, the tower is still standing and a terrified Yolande must take her second go.
Who can build the best sandcastle? How many members can stand up on a lilo? There was some terrible, oh God. When you're editing a show and you know it's not doing well, that sort of is a bit soul-destroying because you think, I've got 4 of these shows to edit, whereas what I'd rather do is ring up the BBC and say, can you just put Dad's Army on? I learned a lot of lessons from Here Comes the Sun. One is that I think I was probably in a position that I hadn't quite earned in TV yet, and I think a lot of people in TV always want to progress, and actually sometimes you should just learn your trade and then move up. It's just going to mean things are far less stressful going forwards. It is horrible making a bad show, but I think one of the things I realised is they do make for some of the best stories, so they're always worth doing for that alone.
It's true. Yes. We're running out of time, but we've got a couple more clips in because people have offered them their souls to us. I think we should see them.
So they're not here. They couldn't be bothered to
turn
up.
They might be here actually. Is Liz Warner in the room? Oh, well, let's all have a laugh at Liz then. This is Liz Warner talking about outrageous wasters.
Hello, Edinburgh. I'm Liz Warner of Betty, and one of the worst shows that we've ever made is definitely Outrageous Wasters for BBC Three.
We're seeking out Britain's biggest energy guzzlers and will attempt to transform them into planet-hugging greenies in just 2 weeks. Helping our families to shape up is our crack team of eco-experts hell-bent on a mission to change the nation's habits.
It's a vegetable, it grows in the ground, and worms crap on it.
It's too much information, I think.
But this is ignorance, you know, ignorance is not necessary.
We took people who were incredibly profligate and wasteful and took them to a field in West Wales and tried to turn them in 2 weeks into eco-warriors. We were commissioned as one of those, it was a, you know, I call them sort of shotgun commissions. It was a shotgun to meet the needs of the schedule. So it was like, here's a commission, you think, marvellous, and then it's like, now can you deliver it in 9 weeks flat? And so we sort of, it was one of those where you were running and you were realising it was wrong while you were, it's sort of a bit like skidding in a car, and you just think you've got to go into the skid and just go with it. No one thanks you for meeting an 8 o'clock Tuesday night for 4 weeks problem in the schedule. But they don't remember that. But they do definitely remember if you've made something really rubbish. It leads to stress, it leads to pain, but also I'm not sure it leads to returning work, because no one goes, that's amazing, you've made that in 4 weeks. They just go, that's shit.
I mean, that's a very good point, isn't it? When sometimes you've got to say no to a commission, which is sort of kind of the point you were making, really.
Do you know, people talk about, I think something really weird is going on if you're in the position where you're having to say no to a commission, because somebody's obviously asking you to do something that they shouldn't be asking you to do. So you should, I would have thought, be having a more open conversation about that, about if you do something in a certain way, it won't be good. But that's a discussion. So the points where you're really forced into a position where you're saying, I don't want to make the show for you, are really, really rare, and they should be, because you shouldn't really get to that point.
Yeah. I think we're going to, we're closing on time, but one of the things I thought we should do, given our panellists here have been so brave, is there's one thing saying my show's really bad, but really, what's the worst show of all time? And we thought we'd like to do some audience interaction, simply on a show of hands. Our 4 panellists here have all brought forward a show. They've talked, sometimes in far too much detail, Clive, about those shows. And we thought on a show of hands, we'd like to know which one of these 4 ideas is possibly the worst idea you've ever heard. And then we can crown them for creating the worst show. And we're all quite happy about that, aren't we?
Totally.
So, well, you could all do the one-line pitch. Actually, let's do that. Clive, your one-line pitch for Beat the Crusher.
An alleged paedophile tries to crush your car.
Okay. Lisa Clark.
Stars you wouldn't expect doing impressions, actually doing the impressions.
Okay. Jonathan.
You've just dry humped a woman, but she's actually a man. How do you feel?
And Murray Bolan.
Just toilet. Absolute toilet.
Okay, on a simple show of hands, Clive Tuller. Okay. That's quite a lot, thank you. Lisa Clark.
See, mine's
people, that's gonna come back. Jonathan.
Oh, it's close.
Oh, God, that is close. Murray Bolan. That's close as well, but I think Tuller just shades it. Congratulations, Clive. You've officially made. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I think it takes a very brave person to come up here and talk so openly about failure. I'd like to thank all our people who came onto the VT, but also I'd really like to thank our panel today who have been excellent. Thank you.